Every day the same, it's driving me insane. And I wish that I could change, but I know I never do. See the start of something new, but I'm back to something blue. I'm back to something blue. Yeah. In the morning, in the night, it don't matter when I try. I'm right back where I started. The same story. No, I'm acting like I never knew. Same story. I go again and again, again and again. Same story. No, I'm acting like I never knew. Same story. I go again and again, again and again. Same story. Don't know how I'm acting like I never knew. Same story. I go again and again.
Hello, everybody. Let me just stop the music. There we go. What do I do? There we go. Hopefully that came through. So I did what I just said to somebody else not to do, which is start playing with new tech just before you're about to do something. I'm just seeing whether it is live. It should be. Yeah, there we go. Awesome. So I should be able to see comments. I've got my Facebook open and I have got my the tech that I've decided to try and use. Anyway, let's get on in. I just wanted to give everybody a minute to find the live, because we know how these things go. Not everybody is able to find us straight away. Managed to do that on there. It's upside down. It does not matter. Okay, so I'm conscious of time. Some of us have got to start work at 7 o'clock. But I wanted to pop on live and have another chat with you all with regards to our food, especially. And this session is about why you eat the way that you do, and looking to talk about how we can start to change some of that. So I'm hoping I'll just check the audio, make sure that I can hear myself over here. Why you eat the way that you do. Okay. Technology is not always my friend today. Okay, so let's get started. So good evening, everybody. I don't know if you caught the song. If you're catching it on replay, you should obviously hear the song. I've been playing with AI music, and so I created the song that you heard, and it is all about our relationship with food and the circles that we can end up going in, and the same loops and the same story. It's quite catchy, actually. I could become a music artist. Anywho, this live is for you ultimately if you found yourself eating when you're not actually hungry, or craving really specific foods at really specific times, or thinking to yourself, why do I keep doing this? And I want to be open about I really want to open up about why we are eating the way that we do. And this is not about a diet perspective. It's not about willpower or giving you yet another diet or food plan, but it's actually about what's driving it underneath. And so I'm going to answer some of the questions that had been messaged to me. a webinar at the start of the week, which was all about why willpower isn't the answer. And I realised that I didn't actually introduce myself. Hopefully, the people who found the webinar knew who I was, or again, there was an intro piece on the page. But so I'm going to introduce myself, make good on that. So I am Faye Caseman. I am a certified life coach, belief coding facilitator, and a Reiki master. And I'm ultimately fascinated by what makes us tick, especially around food, emotions, and energy, with what's going on, so that I can help you lift and shift whatever's holding you back. And with Crave, that's all about food. Okay, so right enough, that's enough about me. So first thing that I want to say is that we're not going around in the same circles with food because we're lacking discipline, because we're lacking willpower, contrary to that popular belief, and whatever that mean girl in your head wants to tell you regularly, right? There's something going on that's deeper. And once you see that, everything then starts to make a lot more sense. You can get to shifting the real issues beneath your relationship with food. So let me, I was really pleased actually, the questions that came through, because it was pretty much everything that I wanted to say. So obviously, we're getting in tune already. But one of the questions that I was asked was about whether certain emotions lean one type of food over another. So for the example that was given, that in movies, when a woman has had a breakup, then they're typically depicted seeing heading for ice cream. And another question posed was whether we're drawn to certain foods due to our early childhood experiences. And the answers actually tie together. So I want to cover them both together. So let's start to break it down. So firstly, what I want to point out is that there is no universal law. So a universal law is something that applies to everyone. So it's why, in my opinion, diets often don't work, as they don't look at us as humans holistically. It doesn't, it's all about the food and the movement. It's rarely about what's going on in your life, what's leading to you to have the eating events in the first place. And they're very much set up as this one method rules them all, kind of Lord of the Rings moment, and one method does not fit all. So I'm going to get off my high horse about diets. And that's not to say that they don't work. Of course they work. There's a lot of people out there that they have worked for, and that's brilliant. If you find something that works for you and it solves everything, I'm not then you're sorted. You don't need anything that I can help you with. But this is for those of us who've been going around in the same loops, in the same stories, going on and off with plans, feeling cravings. It's not the case that there is one emotion. So let's say sadness, that always leads to one type of food. So in this case, the example that was given, ice cream. But you will have your own conscious programming, so your own unique brain code running underneath every choice that you make. So when it comes to actual cravings, your actual cravings, the things that you eat, the reasons why you eat, how much you eat, it's never it's never random. There's always a reason. There's a reason for everything in my book. And so the most important question I think we can ever ask ourselves is why, or if that elicits judgment, what's going on. So to clarify here, food cravings are where you desire a certain food: ice cream, biscuits, crisps, cheese, whatever it might be. A food urge is where you'll eat anything. You just need food, you need it now, and it's urgent. And then we have overeats, where we don't stop even though we're physically sated. So coming back to cravings, it's not just about the ice cream. It's about what the ice cream represents. And so a few years ago, when I was more focused on helping people to release weight, at least physical weight, I really just felt like everybody demonized bread. and sugar and chocolate. And of course there can be, physical reactions to those things. I'm not saying that there isn't. But if it impacted us all in exactly the same way, we'd all have exactly the same response, and we don't. Okay. So the thing is that we've learned, usually in our formative years, so usually under 10, basically, that a certain food will give us a certain reaction in our body, our minds, our body, right? And so if that was ice cream, for example, you might find ice cream comforting, soft, sweet, soothing. In turn might make you feel cared for, safe, held. So when you're actually desiring ice cream, it's not actually about the ice cream, though it is yummy, right? It's actually about your subconscious sending thoughts and desires, because what you really need in that moment is to feel cared for, safe, and held, if that was you and your examples, right? And so again, this is where it then gets deeper, because a lot of us, a lot of the foods that you can be drawn to, they do have these roots in our early experiences, sometimes in a really small way. Maybe you were given something when you were upset, were given things as a treat, times where you felt safe, or you were given comfort. So your brain isn't just choosing food, it's choosing the feeling that it recognizes by you having the food. But on the surface of what you're likely conscious of is just that it's how bloody delicious it is, right? You're not knowing or understanding that all the stuff that's going on in your subconscious, in the back of your brain, because it's in the subconscious, it's in the hidden. And like I say, I am mindful that physiology can come into play. Foods nowadays are made so that we want them, so that we desire them again and again and again. So you've got the snap, crackle, and pop in Rice Krispies. You've got the once you pop, you can't stop. That noise. I did the Whole30 once, which is quite an extreme elimination diet, because I was curious about the impact food was having in my body. And I nearly like cricked my neck off of my shoulders, because somebody opened a can of Diet Pop, Diet Coke behind me, and my head literally whipped around that sound. So again, we can have sensory input that can set off a trail of thoughts and feelings. So again, I'll talk about having eye hunger, nose hunger, mouth hunger, ear hunger, which is like the example that I was just giving. And again, once you start to see your own patterns and understand what you do, why you do it, everything becomes a little bit clearer. So again, I have an affinity more probably towards sweet things majority of the time. I used to bake with my nan. I used to go around after school. We would go down to the sweet shop, and she would buy me sweets. Do you know what I mean? And those are really fond memories. They live in my heart. They live in my heart, they live in my head, and as a result, they live in my body and in my behaviors. From different ways. But as I said, no universal laws. And I think that's the thing to remember, because we can get a little bit black and white with regards to what's actually going on. Whereas actually, when we're faced with a donut, not everybody will crave it and desire it. Not everyone will eat the donut 100% of the time. The behavior of eating is the end result. Before that, we have an emotion. Before that, we have a thought. And before that, we have all these beliefs around food, around our relationship with food, around how we've shown up. So like I said, if we're looking to release physical weight, for example, we've got then a whole load of beliefs about dieting and how we show up when we declare that we're going to work on ourselves and our relationship with food. And we have all of these, beliefs and underlying patterning about what we like, what we don't like, and what emotions they bring us. And so we can very much have a whole host of different emotions leading to different foods. So like say if someone is feeling sad or hurt, then yeah, they might go for ice cream because it's comforting, it's soothing. If you are feeling stressed and frustrated, maybe you go for something crunchy like crisps, because it gives a release of some sort, something to like bite through to get rid of that frustration that you're feeling, that pent up feeling. If we're feeling tired and flat, then we may naturally go to sugar, because again our brain has learned that sugar gives us energy, and it has that physiological response, and it gives us that happy hit, right? And so we go looking for the sugar, but really what we're looking for is the energy, is the lift that our brain believes that sugar will give us. But we also know that often when we have then sugar, it then creates the low. So in the moment, the brain is going, you need some sugar, so off you trot. But then you depending on how it impacts you, I'm blessed that I don't get the drops, whereas I know a lot of people who do get drops after sugar. So therefore, it's a bit of a false reading, because the brain's saying go have this sugar, but because you need the energy. But then like for the people that have the slump afterwards, it's back to square one, right? But again, it's the belief that's underneath that, the connection with the sugar. And our brain is processing your state, my state, all the time. It's looking at how we are emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually. I like to think of it like there's like little meters going on inside, I guess, and it's monitoring. And again, if you've ever seen the film Inside Out, brilliant film for explaining what's actually going on in our brain. So again, I like to think of like these little characters in the back of my brain, just sort of pulling all these levers and bopping all these buttons. But ultimately, the job of the subconscious is to keep you safe, to keep you in status quo, because it thinks that status quo is safe. Problem is sometimes we have faulty wiring, because sometimes it's fighting against what you actually want or truly need. So the eating is not random. It's not a lack of control. You're not broken. You're not lacking in willpower. All the things that, again, we can think and feel about ourselves sometimes. It's actually your brain trying to help you feel better. It's just using a strategy that doesn't always serve you in the long term or doesn't work towards your goals. So let me know what that sparks for you in the chat whenever you get to watch this, whether you're catching it live on replay. And if you're obviously new to me, give me a little cheeky follow. The other thing that I wanted to cover off was about urges. So I've already said that an urge is where we've got this urgent feeling that we need to eat. And so usually this is when we're trying to get away from an emotion. So you could have a craving for the feeling that it brings you, but if your brain doesn't quite know what you need, it just knows that you need some kind of comfort and food's going to bring it. It will just send you off to food, any old food, just to try and solve the problem, not knowing that it's actually inadvertently creating a wider problem, like I gave the example with the sugar. And what I've learned is how often these emotions are so subtle, so subtle, you don't even realize that they are there. And it might be just a little bit of pressure that you're feeling, a little bit of frustration, a fleeting thought of I'm not doing enough, or they won't like me. And that could just be enough to trigger the behavior of eating. So when we're working on a relationship with food, we're often trying to change and force our behavior around food. And if, like, say, we're working on physical weight reduction, for example, there's often naturally has to be a reduction in food or an increase in movement. But this causes our brains to panic. Think about trying to take a doll away from a screaming toddler, and you'd be about right, okay? It's saying, I need these things. You're like, you can't have it. And so, my advice is that you need to be kind to your mind and learn how to hack the system. And that in turn will then help it to stick for longer, if not permanently, right? So in a previous program I ran, I was helping people with food freedom. People weren't just changing what they ate, they were understanding why they were eating. So they were, after the session, it was people had found that they'd reduced binging on the weekends, for example. One had stopped the same cycle she'd been stuck in with food for over 30 years. The overwhelming feedback that I get from belief coding sessions is that people feel lighter and brighter just generally. But imagine just what it would be like to feel lighter and brighter around food and saying things for the first time in a long time about, how relaxed and how natural you feel about food, because that's what I want to help people to do. And part of that is then making sense of why it's happening in the first place, because then once you understand your pattern, you don't have to fight yourself anymore. You don't have to fight the food anymore. And this also is potentially why things haven't worked, or things haven't worked long term, because there's a set of beliefs under there that you're just continually bashing up against. And like I said, because most things focus on what to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, but they're not looking at the real drivers. They're not looking at the reason why you're leading to that food in the first place, where that actually came from. It's not going to the root. And sometimes, if you, depending on how the methods that you use, I say just a bog standard diet won't help you to go deep. The program that I first got introduced to all of this in this world was a life coaching one. That did help me go down to a certain level. But belief coding has helped me to go the deepest by far. Session is, instead of asking how do I stop this, because again we quite often almost get into panic mode of like, this shouldn't be happening, why am I going around in circles, how do I stop this, I don't want this. And really just start to ask, well, what's actually going on here? Because like I say, once it makes sense, it starts to change, because you can't unsee something once you've started to learn your patterns, your habits. And like I say, just think for a moment, just have a think about a moment recently where you ate or overate, and afterwards you were thinking, why did I just do that? And then you're lucky if that's all you think, right? Because usually there can be quite a lot of guilt. We have a lot of guilt and shame trapped around food. And you don't need to share details, but if you wish to in the chat, you can do. If you prefer a more private area, come drop into my DMs. But just notice in that moment, if you could drop into that moment where you had the overeat, or you ate something that perhaps was not what you were planning to eat, and just ask yourself, why did I eat that, with love and compassion rather than judgment. What was coming up, what did I really need in that moment, and just see what response you get. So if you want to know why those same cycles keep repeating, want to start understanding your relationship with food on that deeper level, as I said, you're very welcome to message me. Drop me a DM, let's have a chat. The Crave program is starting this week. It's the first cohort for a research project that I'm doing. I attempted to set up that a link would appear by itself. I don't know whether it did or not. It's been so long since I've been live, and like I said, I've decided to use different software today because why not, let's just spice it up, right? So there may or may not be a link, and if there isn't one already, then I will create one and I will pop it into the comments for anybody that's interested in the research project, being part of that. I really obviously want to help you on an individual level, but also this is part of a bigger whole, because you'll be part and parcel of this research study. And once I've got that, and it's obviously produced as a scientific paper, you'll have been part of that, and I think that's really exciting. I do anyway. So hopefully you do. Okie dokie. So I think that is it. I haven't seen any. Let's grab this doofer and let's make sure that there's no comments. I think they are just me. I hope if I knew how to use my phone. There we go. Any comments? Just hello. So hello Sarah. And I know Norma was going to catch up. Yeah, no judgments. If there are tomorrow afternoon, and I will circle back round and answer any questions that anybody's got. And like I say, my inbox is open, and I will get back to people tomorrow afternoon. So yeah, that's it, guys. And I will love you and leave you for now, and I will speak to you all soon. Bye for now.